Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Robert and Kay Lee Fukui. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here today. You are a very successful entrepreneur, partnership, and also married. There are quite a few married couples out there who start businesses together. But it's not always an easy thing to figure out. Most businesses don't even stay open for past 5 years, but you've become super successful and been able to keep the two separate. And you're going to talk about that along with your new book, Tandem, The Married Entrepreneur's Guide for a Greater Work-Life Balance. So this can be great for any entrepreneur listening in, whether you're married or not, because that's something that's often missing from the world of being an entrepreneur, is any sort of balance at all. So welcome, guys.
Thanks, Christina. Thanks for having us on. We're excited to get talking about the subject we obviously love to talk about.
What caused you or brought you to write the book in particular?
Well, I think it kind of starts from childhood. It might be a little cliche to say, but we're both come from entrepreneur backgrounds, and so we kind of felt the lack of imbalance as children of entrepreneurs, right? We always think about how what we do in business just affects me, or if you're married, your spouse, but it also affects the kids, and you don't realize the extent of it. So that's kind of really where it started, right?
Yeah, I'm third generation entrepreneur family. My great grandpa, he had a painting contracting business. He'd go into like the big grocery stores like Vaughn's and Kroger and paint them. And then my family had a business. And it was struggling as a child because my dad worked six days a week, wasn't home very much, and it really took its toll on his family. The business became the mistress in our family. And to this day, I still don't know if he made it to my high school graduation.
Wow. This is interesting because this is something we've not talked about on Savvy, the effects of entrepreneurship on family, not just, the married couple themselves, but what are the children going through and how does it affect the dynamics of family life?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen it with our client work, how, you've got they have kids, or sometimes even kids in the business that they assume is going to take over the business. But a lot of times the kids don't want part of it. Because of the bad experiences. They look at the business as really the roadblock between them and the relationship they have with their parents. And so as I was transitioning from my Fortune 500 job in marketing and sales about 6 years ago into doing business consulting, kind of found ourselves in that same trap, kind of reliving the past, where the rationale was, I have a full-time job with my corporate job. So the only time to really devote to developing the business has to be on the side, which is basically evenings, right? So we both knew that going in, but I found myself working till 2 a.m., pretty routinely. And so by the time Friday and then the weekend hits, even though I wasn't really working on the weekends, but I was so exhausted that mentally and physically, emotionally, I just wasn't there. Right. So I'd want to walk the dog Saturday morning, we'd have breakfast, and then I just go, literally, I would just nap on the couch for a little bit and just be tired. And so even though, Kaylee was very gracious and said, we know it's just for a period of time, but, it became 2, 3, 4 years, about 2, 3 years. And then it got to a point for me, I'm like, I'm just spent. I'm like, it's not even good for me. I'm like, okay, this isn't fair, not for me, but also for Kaylee. Thank God we didn't have kids, and so we didn't have to deal with the kids, but still, I wasn't present for her. So I'm thinking, this isn't right. Yes, I know I have to devote time on the side, but I'm like, can I just do it better so I can at least get to bed a decent hour? So I had a goal of, okay, instead of 2 a.m., how about 11 p.m.?
That's a big one.
And that's a big leap because 3 hours a night, right, over the course of a week is huge. And so then it would just, with the time constraints I built, or the first boundary, because we talk about creating boundaries in business and life. The first boundary I created was get to bed by 11. Then it was like, okay, now with the time I have, how do I just do more? How just be more productive with it? And there's just a lot of things I just have to say no to. It's basically what it came down to. So that I can focus on the things that really was going to lead to growing the business. So I can leave the corporate environment and then go into consulting full time. But also I had to be very conscious about, once I went consulting full time, I have more time, right? I don't have the evenings anymore, but I have to make sure that I don't backfill it with more busy work, because that's what I saw with our business clients. Even when they gain more time, they just backfill it with more work.
Wow.
So creating those healthy boundaries have to be what that first step of having better work-life balance, and just doing business better and being more productive with the time you have.
Wow. You know, you've touched on so much, Robert. And I recall for me, I had done Savvy full time for 4 years and did some consulting work on the side, financial consulting, and was doing well with it. But I seemed to be using all weekends, all evenings, all day. And it got to a point where I wasn't bringing in enough income. So I got a full time and then thought, oh my God, I'll have to give up my dream. And basically, what I did is I just said, let's get structured with our calendar and our time, and how am I going to use every second of my time to be more efficient? And what do you know? I'm actually had done more shows getting another full-time, but because I made them very structured. And like you just dealt out, okay, here's my exercise time, and we're going to do it at this time every day, or this is when I'm going to spend time with my husband, and we actually make time for it. So I think that's so important to realize how to really structure things so that they don't fall off the wagon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me your experience, Kay Lee, as well, being in entrepreneurship. Did you have problems with the boundaries and setting boundaries with your client and yourself?
Trying to think of a story. Does a story come to mind? I've had issues with boundaries as well growing up, because we didn't have them, you know what I mean? Kind of anything went. And so then you have to learn to say no. And it's challenging sometimes to turn away clients because they're not a fit. Because before we've taken them on thinking, oh, we just need the money, you know, this probably isn't really our niche, but let's just do it anyways and give it a try. And then sometimes it turns badly wrong because it just wasn't meant to be. It wasn't like something we were really good at. Maybe the clients would have been a lot better off going with somebody that had different personality than us. Or this is a big one. That ideal client comes and you can't take them because you don't have time, because you're spending so much other time with this client that wasn't a fit. Because a lot of times they can eat up your time.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really, really, really good point, Kay Lee, because I've witnessed clients that will come to you and say, hey, I want to work with you, but you realize they're not a fit for whatever reason. Sometimes they're even difficult people. And you're like, you know what?
Exactly.
Do I really need to work with this difficult person? Is the money worth it? And like you said, you put yourself in working with a difficult client, which end up taking more time than is, you know, allowed in your maybe contract with them. And then what do you gain? You lose an actual maybe good fit later on. Now, for other entrepreneurs who might be listening in and said, okay, I don't even know where to begin. I'm maybe working for a full time and I'm doing this on the side, but how do I even begin to put those slots in order that I have good boundaries and can begin to separate work, family, and business?
Well, the first thing, you know, especially if you're married, is to have a conversation. What does work-life balance mean to you? I think that's the first thing you need to do, is define it. And the reason why we don't achieve work-life balance is because we don't even define it. Like if you ask the question, how do you define work-life balance? And you get kind of blank stare sometimes, like, well, I'm not sure what that looks like.
What is that?
And so the first thing when it comes to balance, we don't measure balance by quantity of time. It's by quality of time. So we don't measure it by time exactly. It's really about quality. So it's more of a qualitative assessment as opposed to a quantitative assessment. And so even if it's just half hour a day in the morning, first thing in the morning, just have that direct connect time first thing in the morning. Like we do our prayer time in the morning, and then we have direct connect time, and then we get off with our day. That's just like, now that's not the only time we communicate, but it's that dedicated time.
Yeah.
And so that's quality time, right? So regardless of how busy our life can be, that if we always have that quality time, and half hour is not a lot of time in a day, right? We waste more time on social media. You know, if you look at the social media stats, we waste a lot more time on social media than we do just one-on-one. So we can find time. And so a lot of it is then assessing where are the time wasters. Like even for clients, like, are these the clients we want to have? Because they can be time wasters to dealing with the clients we want. right?
Yeah.
And then with those difficult clients, they tend to take up more time than what's in the scope of work.
Mhm.
So not even face-to-face time with the client, but even all the back end stuff you need to do to follow up. So that can eat up time, right? So looking at time wasters. So defining quality of time, figuring out what's the things you want to protect, like personal time, date nights, those kind of things, the things that really bring you joy in your life. Have that in your calendar as protected time. So there's the daily stuff, there's the weekly stuff, there's the monthly stuff. We have our quarterly weekend getaways, we have our yearly ski, vacations, that kind of thing. Put those on a calendar, block it out.
And that can look different for each couple. So you come up with what works for you and what's important to you.
Yeah, because whatever is on our calendar is what we're going to prioritize, right? So if you really want to have work-life balance, you got to prioritize the things that you really cared about. So block that out. And then the rest of the time for business is how you figure out how to do it better. So it's not intruding on your life.
Wow, that is fabulous because, I realized, I think it was a year and a half ago, I started putting fitness into my schedule. And I used to say, oh, I don't have time to work out. Not even a half hour I thought I could fit in. And I was like, I have to make it a priority. So now I do about 40 minutes, 5 times a week. But you know what? It wasn't that hard because like you said, hello, Facebook, Instagram. You just mindlessly start, what am I doing here for 15 minutes? And then, or checking email 10, 20 times a day. Do you need to check it 20 times a day? Maybe we schedule that for, mornings and evenings.
Block it out.
Yeah, exactly.
I got 3 time blocks for emails.
Exactly.
Right? Morning, lunchtime, and then right before I close out for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I've heard from clients, you didn't get back to me immediately. But I think there's that boundary thing you were talking about. Like if your customers and family and friends know that I have 3 blocks for checking emails, I'm going to get back to you, but it'll be at these 3 times.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if it's truly emergency, you can call me, right?
Yeah.
Which they don't. So it's not truly emergency.
No.
So
99.999% of the time, it isn't a huge emergency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That'd be great. Well, I don't want everyone to leave here without finding out how they can get their very own copy of your book, Tandem, The Married Entrepreneur's Guide for a Greater Work-Life Balance. How can they do that?
Of course, you can go to Amazon. It's on there. But then we have our own website for the book, thetandembook.com. And you can actually download the first chapter for free if you want to kick the tires a little bit, and then learn a little bit more about the book.
Awesome. Now, you also work with people as a consultant. What does that look like, and how do you help businesses? What businesses do you help? And I see that you have a general website, marriedentrepreneurs.co. Explain for the audience a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a lot of what we just talked about on the show, how establishing work-life balance and what does that look like. But then on the business side, like the primary thing we're doing is working with them on the business, because again, we're talking about the business is overtaking their personal life, right? So how do we structure the business to be more scalable without taking more time up, right? So the definition of scaling a business is really setting the foundation of business so it can grow beyond the capacity of the business owner. But what's happening with the typical family business is they're just putting more time in to grow the business. And if the growth of your business is dependent on your time, then it's not a healthy situation, regardless if you whether want to grow it or not. So not all business owners want to grow it, and that's okay. But we just want you to have the freedom to decide what you want to do with the business, right? Which is ultimately what they started the business for, was the freedom.
Yeah.
So scaling the business, position a business to scale, allows you the freedom to decide what you want to do with the business.
Yeah. Instead of working for the business as if now you're its employee.
It's not even better than a 9-to-5 job. You're just training owners or leaders, right? In a corporate environment where I came from, you're emboldened to the CEOs, the managers. But as a small business owner, a lot of times you're a slave or you're responsible to the business. And so that's not what we want, right? You want to have the freedom to do what you want to do.
Yeah. And Kay Lee, you mentioned also busy work. A lot of entrepreneurs have said what they found the trap was, I've got to fix my website. I've got to make these pretty little, business cards. I'm like, how important is that to generating business and sales for, to grow your business? And often we get caught up with the newsletter, the business card, whatever it might be, instead of realizing, what do I really need to do today that's actually important?
Yeah.
Yeah, making that a priority, and just staying focused on that, not getting sidetracked. It's so easy to get sidetracked with all these shiny things. And, I tell myself, oh, I'm going to get on Facebook for 5 minutes. Well, an hour later,
I know. Talking to all your family members. It's like, oh, wait, I was supposed to be working.
Exactly.
Oops. Well, I loved meeting both of you. Thank you so much, Robert and Kay Lee, for coming to join me today. Everyone, please go get the Tandem book, thetandembook.com, and go find out more about their wonderful consulting biz at marriedentrepreneur.co. And thank you again, both of you, for coming to Savvy Broadcasting.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for having us.
You betcha.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.